The majority of our children's brain development occurs in the first 5 years of their life. Our kids are sponges, and they want to learn as much as they can. So today I am sharing my favorite ways to practice the alphabet with your toddlers and preschoolers. By beginning to teach these skills early, we can help our children master the name of each letter in the first 5 years of their life. Whether you have a toddler or a preschooler, there are so many different activities you can incorporate into your day that will help your children learn to say the name of a letter, the sound of a letter, and eventually how to write their letters. Hey there, Mama. I'm Lauren Brainerd, and this is Teach Your Littles at Home. I'm so excited you have tuned in as I share fun and hands-on activities you can use right away to help you play and learn with your little ones. So let's dive right into today's episode so you can make more memories than you ever dreamed of. We're going to start today with some of my favorite activities for introducing letters to your toddler, and then we're going to build on this with how we can use similar and different activities for how to work with your preschoolers. Bath time is a great place to work on the alphabet. I love using foam alphabet letters, which I've linked in the show notes for you, because I can use them with so many different ages to work on a variety of alphabet-related skills. So with my really young kids, even my babies, I throw the foam bath letters into the bathtub. They're just toys. They play with them. Then when the time comes that you realize, oh, my child is capable of learning a letter name, what I like to do is actually just stick the foam letter on the wall of the bathtub, and I'll say, this is A. And sometimes they'll repeat it, sometimes they don't. Then I'll grab the A and we'll say, let's make A float on the water. Let's make A become a boat, whatever it is. But you're calling the letter by its name so that your kids associate that shape, because every letter is a shape, with the letter A. Once they have learned the letter A, you move on to the next letter, and you keep doing this until your kids go through and learn the different names of the alphabet. Once your child is old enough to know what to put in their mouth and not put in their mouth, I love introducing bath paint. So it's just a little squeeze bottle. It's really soap, but it's colored. And I paint some of it on the wall. And then we use our foam, the same foam letters, and we stamp those in the paint and we make the letters. So you take your foam letter A, push it in, let them do it, of course, and then they'll say A. And you can grab another letter. You can eventually even start to write their name, however you want to use these, but it's a great way to also start to work on forming letters. Before we can even think about writing a letter, we need to learn to draw specific shapes. So rather than asking your child, draw the letter A, you're just going to have them draw a line. Start with a straight line down. Then you're going to work on, so that would be vertical. So then you're going to work on horizontal. Then you're going to work on a slanted line. And you're just going to keep practicing these lines until your children master this. Then once they can draw the 3 lines, you can start to connect the lines together to actually make the shape of an A. Think about the letter B, a capital B. It's a straight line down, and then it's 2 bumps to the side. So before we're going to write a letter B, we're going to need to be able to draw a straight line and 2 curved lines. Working on all these shapes in the bathtub is so much fun because the kids don't even realize they're learning. They think they're just drawing with paint. Oh, mom drew a line. I'm going to draw a line. Now what can we draw? Let's draw swirls. Let's draw circles, whatever it might be. All of these activities are great for our kids because they're already in the bathtub. They're already doing something they enjoy, and you just found a way to add a learning component into that bath without them even realizing that they're learning. Another way we love practicing the alphabet is through puzzles. I remember when my son was just 2 years old, I found a giant alphabet puzzle that had all the letters from A to Z. And I remember sitting down and thinking, this is going to be so fun. We're going to build the puzzle. Surprise, surprise, he put in 2 pieces and he was done. So what I learned that day was that instead of taking out all 26 letters, take out just 2 or 3 if you have a really young child. And then as they get good at just adding in those couple pieces, you can start to take more out until they're at an age where they can build the entire puzzle. Sensory bins are another great tool for working on the alphabet. So I love to use crinkled paper sensory bins where I take a bin and I just throw in a bunch of the crinkled paper that you find in the gift wrap section. And then I'll take some uppercase and lowercase letters of the same letter. So like an uppercase A and a lowercase a. And I'll print maybe 3 or 4 of each one or write it on a card and put all those in the bin. Then what I do is place 2 small cups or bowls in the sensory bin, and I'll put an uppercase A in one and a lowercase a in the other. Now, depending on the age of your children, you can teach them this vocabulary of uppercase and lowercase. But what I usually do with my 2 and 3-year-olds is we call it big A and little a, or big B and little b. The language is easier for them to say, and it's still committing to memory that this is an uppercase and this is a lowercase, and we can learn that new vocabulary later. After you've taken time to sort letters, you might want to try just exposing your kids to the entire alphabet. So I love to use a tub of magnetic letters. They're small, they're about an inch tall. I've linked those in the show notes for you. And I will throw a bunch of these into the bin all together. Now, when you're working with toddlers, never ever expect to work on all 26 letters simultaneously. Their brains are still maturing, and it's going to end up frustrating for them because they typically won't remember all of the letters when you're first starting out. So what I do when I have all the letters in a bin is I use this just for exposure. We are working on finding letters, but I don't expect them to know the name of the letter. We're just finding the letters, playing with the letters, maybe sort them by different colors. What red letters can you find? What blue letters can you find? What green letters can you find? And that's a great way to incorporate another skill. But while our kids are still being exposed to the fact that each of these shapes does represent a letter, it can be really fun to take these letters outside, of course, and put them in a bin full of sand. And then what we do is we use a paintbrush and we pretend to be archaeologists and we go looking for letter fossils. So we'll take our paintbrushes and just brush it away in our sensory bin till we find a letter, dust all the sand off, and then just set it outside the bin. And we keep doing this until we find all the letters. Anytime our kids sit and work on a seated activity for any extended period of time, you'll notice in 2 and 3-year-olds that they often start to get a little wiggly. So a great thing to do is take a gross motor break. So we love to work on hopping from letter to letter. So what I'll do is if we're working on the letter A, is I'll write an A on a bunch of different cards or even use chalk and put those on the ground. So you can do chalk A's or you can tape cards to the ground. And then we stand on the first letter and just hop. And we say hop to the A, hop to the A. And then we'll move on after that to a letter B, hop to the B, hop to the B. Depending on how much exposure your child has had to letters, you might do A, B, C on the ground, or you might just have 3 A's if you're still working on what the letter A is. And it's really fun to follow a chalk maze between the letters. You can actually make like a big swirl in your backyard on the concrete and do A's or B's or whatever letter you're working on throughout the swirl. And they have to hop on that pattern. So you might do a zigzag line, you might do a straight line, you might do a curved line, you might do a spiral. They're all fun ways to just get them moving in different directions as they're working on the names of letters. Now that they've gotten their wiggles out, you can go to the refrigerator, make a snack, and give them those same magnetic letters that we were using in a bin for exposure, and let them just play with them on the refrigerator. We've actually also done this on our washing machine because we don't have the front loading, we have a top loading, so the whole front is a magnet. And my kids will just put all the magnets on the board and play with the letters. You know, they're 2 and 3-year-olds, so they'll turn them into animals or little fairies or whatever it might be. But they're still, again, being exposed to all these shapes, and you can tell them to play with their letters so that they know that what they are using is a letter. My youngest daughter isn't quite 2 years old yet, but another way that I'm starting to work on letters with her is by putting either liquid paint into a bag or dyed water into a Ziploc bag. Now, I'll warn you, these do need to be sealed off very, very carefully for this activity to go as planned. But what I do is I fill up a Ziploc bag with just a little bit of liquid paint and then seal the top really well and take a large strip of duct tape and actually tape that across the top where the opening is, just so that there's no way she can get it open. And then I tape the bag down onto her high chair tray. I put a piece across the top and then I slide a letter card underneath the bag on her tray. And then I tape the bottom of the bag to the high chair tray as well. And then what she does, she just takes her little fingers and she moves the paint around in the bag and spreads it out so that she can find the letter that is underneath the bag. So you can do uppercase letters, lowercase letters. You can swap them out after they find them. It's also a great activity to do as your kids start to get a little older, because you can have them see how fast they can guess the name of the letter by moving the paint around on the bag to get to the letter underneath. When you start to think about writing letters with toddlers, it's important to remember that this is just pre-writing. This isn't sitting down and expecting your child to take out a manuscript piece of paper and write out all the letters. But what we're doing is we're just starting the pre-writing phase where they're learning how to write the letters. That same liquid paint bag is a great tool to work on letters because they can actually take their finger and finger paint on the bag to try to write lines or curves or even the letter itself without any of the mess of finger paint that usually comes along with finger painting. So it's contained in a bag and they can still, finger paint in a sense onto that bag. Another way we work on pre-writing is by painting with water using a paintbrush on concrete. This is great to do on a sunny day because the water dries really quickly. So you can take a paintbrush, dip it in a cup of water, and then draw a line. So I want you to remember the phrase, I do, you do. So you'll tell your child, I do, then you do. So first you'll draw a line, and then they'll take their paintbrush and they can either trace your line or write their own line. And then after that, they're going to continue to write the shape of the letter. So you'll do, let's say you're doing the letter A, you'll do curved line down to the left, and then say you do, they do their line. Then you go back to the top of that A, curved line down to the right, they do the same thing, and then you're going to connect the shape with that line across the middle, and they'll do the same thing. Now, it doesn't matter what their letter looks like, whether it looks like an A or not, praise them for the job that they did, because again, they're learning. Just the fact that they're trying and they're following your movements is all we're hoping for in the toddler phase. I find it really fun to also write out, A, B, C across the ground and then have them take their paintbrush and do it on top of yours. You can also do the same thing using chalk because it's such an easy way to clean it up with just hose it down when you're done. But the water is nice because there is no mess left behind. And when you're working with really young children, when you're using something like chalk, it's easy for them to get carried away. And it's nice with the water because if they do get carried away, it'll dry and you can start over again. Now let's talk about what to do with your preschoolers. So just like with my toddlers, we love bath paints in the bathtub, but instead of just working on stamping the letters or starting to write those shapes, we're going to use the bath paint to actually start to write letters. So similar to how we talked about with the finger paints in a bag with our toddlers, we can do the same thing with our preschoolers in the bathtub. Smear some of that bath paint on the wall and then have them write an actual letter. I like to take the foam letters and stick them to the wall and then smear the paint next to it so that they can actually write the letter by using the foam letter as a guide for what they're trying to write. And I have them just put one up, write it, use their hands, smear out their bath paint, make a nice clean slate, stick up a new foam letter, and try again. Sensory bins are my absolute favorite tool for the alphabet with preschoolers because there's just so many opportunities for them to work on letters, but while engaging their senses at the same time. So we talked about using the magnetic letters in a sensory bin. And one thing that I love to do is actually hide all of the magnetic letters in a sensory bin. And then I put out a matching mat that has all the letters from A to Z written out, and they're the same size as the magnetic letters. And as my children find each letter, I have them take it out and just set it on that matching mat. The next tool I love using for working on the alphabet with preschoolers is Play-Doh, because it is so good for their fine motor skills as they roll it out, squeeze it, flatten it. And it's a great tool to use to start to form letters without the extra pressure of writing with a pencil or a crayon on a piece of paper. So what I do is actually print out some alphabet Play-Doh cards, which if you've grabbed my preschool bonus bundle in a prior episode, you already have these. If not, it's linked in the show notes for you. But you can just print out these alphabet cards and then you'll set them on the table and have your children use Play-Doh to roll it and then start to form the letters. So for an A, you can picture they're going to roll a snake with their hands, cut the dough, roll another snake, line it up at the top to make the top, the upside down V, if you can think about it that way. And then another piece of Play-Doh across the two sides to connect to make a complete uppercase letter A. And they'll keep doing this for every single letter card that you give them. I also love just rolling out a big sheet of dough, if you can picture like cookie dough, which is why I tend to make my own just because it takes so much Play-Doh to do this. And then we use our alphabet cookie cutters, and I'll link those in the show notes, and we just press them into the dough. If you want to get adventurous, you could actually make cookies, but I tend to do this with Play-Doh because it's just a lot less work and I don't have to worry about eating too many cookies after the activity. And just like with your toddlers, when you notice that your kids are getting too wiggly, take a gross motor brain break. Take them outside or even inside and do some sort of activity to get their wiggles out. So I love to do an A to Z hop with my preschoolers where I write out the letters A to Z along a maze and they hop from each one. After they've hopped, we practice skipping or galloping or whatever it might be. But every time they hop or step on a letter, I have them say the name. I'm, of course, there to support as needed. So if they get to a letter and they don't know the name, I just say it, they repeat it, and they move on to the next one. Depending on the level of your child, you can do the letters in order. You can do just 5 letters. You can do 10 letters. You can mix up letters, whatever you think they're ready for. Hide and seek is another great way to get their wiggles out. So what I do is I'll hide all the letters in a given area. Then I will have them run around like it's an Easter egg hunt to just find all of the different letters. And then we will either just say the letters or we put them in order, whatever skill your child is ready to work on. Using those same cards that we used for our hide and seek game, I take them right over to a sand writing tray. So I'll put a little bit of sand in a tray. You can use a small bin for this. You can use an actual sand writing tray. You can even use a baking dish, whatever you have on hand. Just fill it with a little bit of sand. If you don't have any sand, I've found that sugar also works really well. Just be careful where you do it because, of course, you don't want to attract any insects from any spillage that might happen. Then what you do is you just stick one of those letter cards at the top of the bin and have your child either use their finger or you can use a popsicle stick to write the same letter that is on each card. So you just go through, they'll point to the letter, they'll say A, they'll write an A, and then just give that dish a little bit of a shake to smooth out all the sand or sugar again and write the next letter. You can keep going for as long as they're engaged or until you finish the cards. You can do them 10 times, whatever your child is up for. Another activity I love outside is writing with chalk on concrete. And now that I'm hoping your child has been exposed already to the same skills we talked about with toddlers, where they're working on the different line shapes and curves and those sorts of things. So then they can use their chalk to actually start to write the letters. So I'll give them a card and I'll have them write the letter. If your child is really advanced and ready for more, you could even give them a strip of paper that has all the letters written from A to Z and have them take it and go work on all their letters, whatever they're ready for. Another great tool are letter stamps, and you'll have them just stamp the stamp pad and stamp the paper. And each time they stamp it, you can work on the name of the letter. If they are ready for it, you can even have your child start to make the sound that every letter makes. Now, you might be thinking that all these activities sound like so much fun, but we're on the go a lot of the time. Can't get in the bath, can't do a sensory bend. So there's also lots of ways to practice the alphabet while you're on the go. So my kids and I love playing what we've always called the ABC game in the car. So as we're driving around, we'll look for each letter from A to Z. Now, my oldest son is 8 and he still loves and asks to play this game. So it's a great way to just work on finding letters in the wild. You can do this while you're driving in a car. You can do this in the grocery store because there's letters on everything in the grocery store. So you just have them start going through and find a letter A and they'll point to it and say A. Then they'll find a letter B and point to it and say B. Another great activity to practice when you're on the go is saying the name of a letter and having your child repeat the sound that it makes. A makes the sound A. Apple begins with A. So they saw an apple. They saw a banana. They saw a carrot. You can just start going through all the different letters and look for things that begin with those sounds. I hope I've been able to give you some new and fresh ideas to help you work on the alphabet with your little ones. But just remember, They are young. Learning new skills can be hard. So just take it one step or one letter at a time, and don't feel like you have to learn the entire alphabet in one day. Break it into small and manageable pieces. One letter, two letters, whatever they're ready for. But remember, don't try to work on all 26 letters all at one time, because it will take the fun out of it, and it will cause your child to possibly even get frustrated, which will not help them learn. So remember, all these activities are meant to be fun and ways to learn the letters through play. So if you do try something with your child, I would love to hear how it went. You can pop into our Teach Your Littles at Home Facebook group that's linked in the show notes and share about what you tried this week. I look forward to hearing all about it, and I'll be back next week with even more simple activities that you can do with your little ones right from home. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Teach Your Littles at Home. I hope you are feeling so inspired to create a new activity to do right away with your little ones.
If you like listening to my mommy, will you please leave her a review?
Before you head off to plan the next activity, would you mind leaving me a quick review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you are listening from? This is the only way for me to know if you're finding my tips, activities, and advice helpful, and I get so excited reading each and every review. I hope this episode has left you feeling empowered to try something new with your kids this week. And if so, would you please hit the share button and share this episode with another one of your mama friends who also wants to create activities with her little ones. I can't wait to share even more fun activities with you on our next episode. Have a wonderful rest of your day playing and making memories with your little ones.